Welcome to Meandering Molly. On the first trip of 2026, we've come up the River Medina to Newport. It's Easter weekend. It's been very windy. Storm Dave has come rattling through last night, and we've been hiding at the top of the River Medina at Newport, enjoying the Isle of Wight. Newport, the Isle of Wight's county town, was founded as a planned medieval settlement in the late 12th century, centred on the River Medina. The river once carried goods such as grain, timber and coal to its busy quays from the Big Island, whilst the markets and coaching inns made Newport the island's hub for trade and travel. The town's golden age was during the Georgian and Victorian eras, and many of the elegant buildings from that time are in evidence. Newport remains the island's county town, but like many small towns has rather fallen on hard times. Much of the trade has shifted to large out-of-town outlets, though many independent local shops remain. There are two interesting monuments on the quay, opposite the Bargeman's Rest pub, where we had two excellent evening meals. The first is a large propeller from the Yellowfin, a former ferry that served the island for many years. The second is a memorial to Operation Dynamo, the evacuation of troops from Dunkirk in 1940 by the little ships, a number of which were from this town. Both of these are reminders of the town's long maritime connection. Walking up Quay Street, the old route for inbound goods, it's an easy walk into town. The elegant Calvert's Hotel is an old coaching inn, an important travel hub on the island before the arrival of the railway. The prosperous past of Newport can be seen in many of the smart old buildings such as Leonard's, once a well-known department store, which has found a new life as a bakery. The old Medina cinema facade still reminds us of its past life, dating from the golden age of movies. Today its ground floor is repurposed as a pub and the auditorium upstairs as a church. Filmgoers are now served by a modern multiplex on the outskirts of the town. Newport Minster is a prominent landmark dating from the 19th century, following extensive rebuilding after a fire damaged an earlier incarnation, and is now the civic church. St James Street has been a principal shopping street since medieval times, and many independent shops remain. In the centre of town is the Queen Victoria Memorial, commemorating that monarch who spent so much time on the island and did much to make the place famous. Her son, later Edward VII, was an enthusiastic yachtsman and a regular visitor to the island. During the stormy weather over the Easter weekend, we travelled to Ryde on one of the island's new electric buses, introduced a matter of days before our visit. These quiet, powerful and emission-free double-deckers now operate many of the busiest routes, providing a more modern way to travel around the Isle of Wight. A short trip brought us to Ryde, home to one of the island's most famous landmarks. Ryde Pier opened in 1814 and is the oldest seaside pleasure pier in Britain still in regular use. Stretching over half a mile into the Solent, it reaches water deep enough for ferries to operate, whatever the state of tide. As we walked towards the pier head, there were wonderful views across the Solent to Portsmouth. The pier is unusual because pedestrians share it not just with cars but the island's trains too. These modified former London Underground trains, adapted to suit the island's local gauge, still run the full length of the pier, connecting the ferry terminal with the rest of the island line. Looking across the water, another unique form of transport comes into view. The world's first practical hovercraft were developed here on the island by Saunders Roe, with the pioneering SRN-1 making its maiden flight from Cowes in 1959. Just 6 years later, the Ryde to South Sea service began, and today it is the world's only year-round scheduled passenger hovercraft route. Carrying up to 78 passengers, it crosses the Solent in under 10 minutes. Because it travels directly from beach to beach, no pier is needed, making it the fastest route between the island and the mainland. Back at the pier head, the high-speed catamaran provides another rapid way to cross the Solent. In just 22 minutes it reaches Portsmouth Harbour, where passengers can step straight onto the national rail network. Between the electric buses, railway, hovercraft and fast ferry, the Isle of Wight offers one of the most varied and fascinating, though not inexpensive, public transport systems anywhere in Britain. After exploring Ryde and its remarkable collection of transport links, it is time for us to head back. While there are plenty of ways to cross the Solent, our favourite is still under sail, so we'll return to Molly for the passage back to Portsmouth. Nikki at the helm.
He's at my bottom.
Extra crew today. Alice is joining us for this passage. We've had a nice time. She's taken us to the cinema, taken us shopping. She wishes she could have a swim, but it's a bit cold for that. She's found the best observation spot on the boat. This company previously was involved in Formula One, and they're using their carbon fibre know-how to make wind turbine blades. So they make these in matched sets of 3. You see there's a set there on the quayside, and they've got a special boat called Blade Runner that comes and collects them, takes them into either Southampton or sometimes Portsmouth, ready for onward transport to fitting in the North Sea, other offshore wind farms available. And opposite Vestas we've got Island Harbour, which is a lovely little marina, which is behind a lock, so it's only accessible either side of high water. Quite good facilities there, quite nice walks along the shore of the River Medina, and in front of it you can see the wreck of a paddle steamer, which I was told yesterday was one of the Dunkirk little ships. It went across and wasn't supposed to come back, but the skipper took extra fuel so that he could come back, and it continued operating until almost the end of the 20th century. It was a nightclub spot for many years, I understand, but it's in a pretty sorry state of decay now. Very distinctive turret for the lock control. Pretty marina inside. They have a popular Folly Inn. Many a good night was had there. Got this walkway out to some walk-ashore pontoons, but the walk-ashores are relatively few, so we end up using the water taxi. A bit quiet today. Lots more visitor pontoons over here. Approaching the outskirts of Cowes now. Lots of moorings down here. Got a funny little pontoon here, which is for the practicing of mooring, coming alongside and coming off. Cowes power station. It's the only conventional power generation on the island. runs on light fuel oil. It's a gas turbine and spins up at peak times. Replaced, built in 1982, it replaced a coal-fired power station, which has now been demolished. East Cowes Marina used to be owned by boat folk. Always was a very pleasant place to stay. We don't have many visitor moorings, but you can pick up an overnight or a couple of nights by using berths vacated by berth holders. Boat folk now been acquired by Premier Marinas now. East Cowes town is a nice easy walk from here. Much quieter than the main town of Cowes. A couple of very nice restaurants. Always been a very pleasant place to stay. Numerous boat yards. Coming into the town proper now. You see the floating bridge going across, carrying cars and foot passengers from one side to the other, from East Cowes to the main town. And the Red Funnel ferry is in. So numerous hazards to negotiate. The floating bridge is a chain ferry, so it's really important to give it a wide berth as you go past, because the chains are quite shallow in the water near to the ferry. Underneath that crane is the Classic Boat Museum. It doesn't look much from the outside, but it is really well worth a visit. Lots of really interesting boats inside. The Red Funnel ferry loading up with cars. Still see quite a big queue. So she's not going to be going anytime soon. Looking over towards Cowes itself, passing Shepherd's Marina. Cowes Yacht Haven is beyond that, the two big marinas in town. Fast Cat is just departing, but we're going to go out through the small boat passage, which is over there. You can see something large coming out of Southampton. It'll be making its turn. We'll have to watch out for that. This is the busiest part of Cowes, boating wise. Lots of boats tied up in there. Can be quite a tricky place to moor because of course it's a river. So when you go into the marina you have to be aware of what the tide is doing as well as what the wind is doing when manoeuvring, something which has caught me out in the past. Well, perhaps today is the mainsail day. Skipper and crew enjoying The benefits of downwind sailing?
Definitely. Debating breaking out the lunch now as well.
Ooh. I think that might be the cabin girl's duties.
Particularly on this point of sail because it's nice and easy.
Yeah. Well, we can put we'll try the auto helmet in a minute. For the first time. Christened Arnold, as in Schwarzenegger, because he's like Andy the Arm, but he's stronger, so he's Arnie the Arm. Alice, go steer to wind.
Yeah.
That's it, engage pilot. Whoa!
Just a good one.
Well, we're sailing nicely now. Andy certainly wouldn't have coped with this. Arnold seems to be doing a good job. Downwind, 2 reefs in the main on jib. We had a lovely run down the Solent, across Bramble Bank, and we're arriving at the home waypoint, Gill Kicker Point, with Fort Gill Kicker, 19th century Palmerston Fort, which is currently under some kind of restoration. Looking for sailing very deep, sailing by the lee at one point to get us round Gill Kicker without jibing. Hooray! And we will be able to bear off a bit and sail a bit faster. In fact, we already are. So, nearly home.
Actually? Yep. You have one of the views looking out over the water, don't you? There's the view. This is the old naval hospital, and they used to have them as separate wards, so each block would be separate wards, so that if there was infection it didn't spread between the wards. Like isolation units.
They're rather elegant buildings, really.
Very elegant.
The submarine escape tower, Gosport, 30 metres. It's to train submariners who make a buoyant ascent from the bottom right in an airlock and ascend through 30 metres of water. So, there used to be a dive in there, and they closed it now.